In the news this week, with press speculation rife that Rishi Sunak will publish a draft bill on conversion therapy, the Christian Institute reiterates its readiness to take legal action if it restricts the ordinary work of churches. More than 70 Tory MPs back a bill requiring schools to give parents access to what their children are taught in sex education lessons. And Evangelical Anglicans urge the House of Bishops to uphold the Bible's teaching on same-sex relationships. Hello. The Christian Institute has restated its readiness to take legal action against the government if it brings in a conversion therapy bill that impacts everyday religious practice. The announcement comes in response to press speculation that a draft bill banning so-called conversion practices is set to go ahead. LGBT activists have been calling for a law covering preaching, prayer, pastoral conversations, and even parenting that upholds biology and biblical sexual ethics. If published, the Institute will take advice from a King's Council on whether the draft fulfills the government's pledge not to criminalise innocent conversations. Institute Deputy Director Kieran Kelly warned Westminster against trampling over religious freedom.
Well, there isn't a bill in place yet, so we can only speculate about what the content of it might be. But what we do know is that the activists pushing for a new law want to see restrictions placed on the ordinary work of churches. So we're talking about an impact on the preaching of repentance, an impact on prayer, an impact on pastoral care. Parents too need to be really worried because it's going to affect conversations that they might want to have about biblical sexual ethics or conversation perhaps with a gender-confused child. And let's not forget that this is a law that is unnecessary because LGBT people are already protected from coercion and abuse. So we'd really encourage people to pray that this bill, that even now it might be dropped.
Scores of Conservative MPs are supporting a backbench bill to ensure parents have a legal right to view sex education materials. Miriam Cates wants schools to be required to share copies of text and images used in RSE lessons with parents. Her Relationships and Sex Education Transparency Bill would also ban schools from using unpublished third-party teaching resources. Failure to comply would entitle parents to bring legal action. Mrs. Cates said, in his speech to Tory party conference this month, the Prime Minister said it shouldn't be controversial for parents to be able to know what their child is being taught. The public agrees, with recent polling revealing that 71% of people think parents should have the legal right to see sex education materials. Private members' bills rarely become law, but with the support of more than 70 of her colleagues, Mrs. Cates is calling for the bill to be included in next month's King's Speech. Evangelicals within the Church of England have urged the House of Bishops to hold fast to the gospel. Reverend John Dunnett from the Church of England Evangelical Council publicly thanked 11 bishops for dissenting from the decision to commend prayers for those in same-sex partnerships without final agreement from General Synod. Their letter warned this stopped Synod from being able to test whether the prayers are indicative of a departure from church doctrine. Writing in Christian Today, Reverend Dunnett said, "There must be proper and fit use of power, not misuse and abuse of power. I share with the signatories the deep desire that we remain true to the gospel as entrusted to us." And finally, a survey has shown that almost 3/4 of Manx doctors oppose plans to legalise euthanasia on the Isle of Man. Alex Allenson's assisted dying bill, which is due to have its second reading later this month, would enable certain persons deemed to be terminally ill to be lawfully provided with assistance to end their life. But according to the Isle of Man Medical Society's survey, nearly 2/3 of respondents could see no need for a change in the law. More than half felt the proposals would have a negative effect on recruitment, and a third indicated they might consider leaving the Isle of Man if this legislation was passed. Of the 53 comments submitted, most opposed removing end-of-life protections. One medic feared no vulnerable person would ever be safe or supported again, and another warned a right to die will become a duty to die. Murder will be able to hide in plain sight. Well, that's all for this week. For regular updates and information on all of our stories, plus much more, visit our website at christian.org.uk. Until next time, goodbye.